just because you have this ride or die mentality when everything around you, all of the people close to you, all the people who care for you, love you, keep telling you that person has not been good for your life. But because of loyalty, you stick around. Good evening and welcome to the Purpose and Powerful podcast, where tonight we're talking about the misguidance of struggle love. We have Thomas coming on tonight. I'm your host, Erica Lester, and I'm here with my co-hosts.
Where's the bread? We're going. I'm in Brooklyn. I'm shooting from Brooklyn, New York. So we're outside. But you never could miss a live episode of the podcast. And then Erica do what she does as the host. And let's get this thing going. How you doing, Thomas?
Wow,
How are you this evening?
I'm doing well.
So, struggle love. Let's see. Struggle love is actually when looking for love, people that have a partner that sticks with them through thick and thin. Okay, someone who's loyal and stays with them through the hardships, even if it includes multiple breakups, constant fighting, infidelity, all the like. Although no relationship is perfect, some relationships seem to be full of a lot more drama and struggle than love and support. So, how to recognize if you're in a struggle love situation is through various ways, which include you being the sole breadwinner, doing the majority of the cooking and cleaning, not feeling emotionally supported, or simply feeling like you have to fight your partner for affection and kind words. Now, that's not to be confused with your relationship's going through a rough patch, someone recently lost a job, or a significant hardship just happened. This is just where, out of loyalty, you stay with the person just because you have this ride or die mentality when everything around you, all of the people close to you, all the people who care for you, love you, keep telling you that person has not been good for your life. But because of loyalty, you stick around. So, Dr. Jabril, have
Yes.
you witnessed, been in, or encountered people in relationships that would be identified as struggle love?
Well, definitely. I think that a lot of times people get with, sometimes they say that opposites attract. But I say sometimes opposites attack. And growing up, there were people that my mother definitely didn't want me to date, or if they felt were toxic for me. However, I still went on for the sake of saying love, but it really was a rebellion, saying love disguised as rebellion, and ended up with the wrong people, which cost me years of my life of not being able to fulfill my own purpose. So I think that it is some validation with our family and our friends who care about us. And it's not that they don't want to see us happy, but when the cookies crumble, we always tend to go back to our family who told us not to get into those relationships. So I've seen this happen. I've also cared about people and asked them or hoped that they wouldn't get into a toxic relationship or stay in one, and they still stayed in it. So it's definitely a big topic, not just a topic, but I'd say epidemic at this point.
Absolutely. I think that one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, has been you both start at the bottom and the other person, rises in the relationship. And so they're doing all they can to motivate, to empower the other person, support the other person to do better, get better. Yes, babe, get the degree. You got the job, get the job. But honestly, within that person, they know they don't want more. So it becomes very frustrating. So I think that part of saying, well, I don't want to leave them because they've been with me all this time, all this long, or like so many people seem to be coming against them and they don't know them like I know them and all these different things. just so that they don't want to feel like they're leaving that person, they're ditching them for better. They can get caught up in this emotional entanglement, if you will, by saying, well, I don't really want to be disloyal. And they've been there for me when I didn't have anything. But now they're frustrating the situation. And now I have to make some key decisions. Like, well, I've done all I can do to support them. It's obvious that they don't really want it. And then when, the relationship comes under fire, or through all the ugly struggles and attacks and arguments, it will come forth out of that person that says, well, I don't want that. And I don't want to be that. And, you changed and all of these things, when truly they resent you for the change. They resent you for the ascent. They resent you for not staying at that level when they were comfortable with you being in that down state. And that, I think, is more a resemblance of what's happening in today's dating market. Is just not one to say I'm a bad person because I left this person who's been with me when I didn't have anything, but failing to recognize that now you have a situation that you're not going to go any higher. It's not like your life is happier. I mean, you're constantly in battles and fights. You have the envy, you have the distrust, you have all those markers that make your relationship very toxic. And you have to make a decision: is them or life itself. I think you had said one time before, Jabril, on something, when we were talking about divorce, and you said what helped you make up your mind was it literally was life or death for you.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
the first sign I would say is, for any toxic situation, is going to be your loss of peace and your loss of sleep. I think anybody can mostly identify that you're going to have loss of one or the other or both altogether.
I agree. Well, I mean, anytime there's a separation, there is a loss. There's a disconnect, a decision, which talks about cutting. Something is cut. But when something is cut, where there's an end, there's a new beginning. And that's how you got to look at it. So it's not a death, it's a rebirth. And I was in a first marriage, and I ended up getting married again. Now, it's been great. Actually, I wouldn't have met you if I wouldn't have married my. So it all worked out. Now we have the Purpose and Powerful podcast.
Absolutely.
Just by making that decision and being, as some may say, disloyal, because I was in a situation where they don't believe in no divorce, but it was just getting tough. And I don't think I'd be alive today if I'd have stayed in the marriage. Not saying anything against my ex-wife, but I'm just telling you where I was. Because I can't act like a victim and say somebody killed me. But allowing yourself to be in a situation that is not the best for you or for everyone, that can lead to death. And dying, to me, is anything that you're doing outside of your own purpose. You're slowly dying. Slowly dying. And when you don't see something coming up front, like you get hit by a car, or instant death, you don't see it. But doing something little by little, taking you away from your purpose, it's true death. And I wouldn't want to have my last death not knowing who I was supposed to become when God gave me the opportunity to go on this earth to serve and fulfill this kingdom. That's death.
Wow.
That also ties into having the right mate. And if you're not with the right mate, you need to leave as soon as possible, because time is not promised us.
Coming on real heavy today, Dr. Jabril. Girl Harrington, so you've been married for over 30 years, but you've counseled so many people in relationships, myself included. What have you seen that you've helped people identify that they were in struggle love situations?
You know, we are. I always go back to the challenge that we really have is understanding true love and understanding if we are really with the person that we are supposed to be with. You know, there's a whole lot of songs that we can go back to back in the day You know, don't don't worry about the man that you don't worry about the man that you want. Be with the one that you're with. Um, you know, it's better a bird in the hand is better than 10 in the bush. You know, if it ain't fixed, don't break it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Um, I don't want to be alone. You know, you know, what's it, Bobby Blue Bland? Ain't nobody in my bed but me. Um, all those kind of crazy things that we have grown up with, and I think that being alone has become a stigma or something that people believe is something that they can't. I mean, it's like a curse.
Mm.
But being with yourself is the most important thing that you need to be able to deal with. Because if you can't deal with the voices that you have inside of yourself, then you're not going to deal with the voices that come from others. And if you haven't, healed from previous relationships, every relationship's become a part of you, especially if you, and we don't have this conversation, if you are sexually involved, if you are emotionally involved, it automatically affects your spirit man. And in that spirit man, you have to do a cleanse every time, a spiritual cleanse, physical cleanse, emotional cleanse. You should every time you go into a relationship, because the more relationships you have, the more people become more gray instead of black and white, and it's hard to tell the difference. Um, and I believe this struggle that you're talking about, is not really a struggle; it's confusion.
Mm.
Is a confusion between what you had, what you want, and where you at. And with all of that, each one of those, you have to be true to yourself. And you hear me say that all the time. It's just like I was telling, the um, one of the scribes asked Jesus. He says, "What is the greatest commandment?" He says, "Love the Lord thy God with all their heart, their mind, their soul, and their spirit." But then he says the next one is love your neighbor as yourself. We get stuck on love your neighbor. You got to love your neighbor. But how can you love your neighbor if you don't love yourself? Because it says love your neighbor as yourself. Your neighbor in a relationship is that person that you're dealing with. If you don't love yourself, if you're not comfortable with yourself, if you're not understanding who you are, what you need, where you are at the moment, then everything else is a blur, because you're fighting yesterday's news with tomorrow's needs and today's wants. And so this struggle, and that's why I said it's confusion, because as you look at it, is it really a struggle to be in a relationship? Because if it's a struggle to be in a relationship, the question is why. And if it's a why, is it because of emotions that's going on? Are you looking at the person? Are you looking at the person that you were with? Are the relationships you had in the past that are mimicking some of the things that are going on in this relationship? Now, are you really looking at this person for who they are and what they bring to the table, what they are presenting to you at the table, and what you believe in your spirit that they are presenting, that they are going to give you at the end? So, and my dad always told me this. He says, always ask one question, two questions before you even go to have a sexual relationship, anything with a person. Is this the person that I want to marry? Do I want to take this person home to mom? And that set a standard for me, and it kept me out of a lot of bedrooms. It kept me out of a lot of relationships, because I'm like, I ain't taking that home to mama. I don't want to be seen with that. Yeah, I take her to a bar, but I ain't taking her to the church. Or if I can't take her to any place that I want to go, and I would change that from a sense of, Is this the person that you want to be in your life, that represents you in its totality? Even though they cannot represent you, but you have to be proud and be bold enough to take them wherever you want and wherever you go. If you can't take them into every sitting that you have, then you might want to check it out. You might want to look at it and ask that question. Because a lot of times we look at what I need at home and not what I need outside of the home.
Hmm.
What I want in the bedroom versus what I want in the boardroom, or what I want in a social setting. And so when we start looking at the total picture and stop looking at the individual pieces, we can probably stop having a struggle, because you can't fit a round hole in a square peg in a round hole. Just like, you can always, now, I'm a philosopher, right? But I always say you can always fit a round peg in a square hole as long as the round peg is smaller than the square hole. But then it don't meet the bill. There's a whole lot of space around it that got to get filled in, and you got to do the filling in. And that's what comes up, because that means that person is coming up short, that person is coming up ineffective, and that person is not going to be the person that you want in every situation. Yes, because you've been there in every situation. Yes, you have been there for that person. How many times has it been a team effort, or has it been your effort to try to keep everything going? And so that's where that whole being true to yourself, being complete with yourself, not needing somebody to fill a void, but having somebody to complete you.
Very
You're
interesting.
completing them.
Absolutely. I love the struggle being, is it a struggle? But it just tells you that it's mental, emotional, and spiritual at the end of the day. We select things, our choices are reflective, they're a reflective mirror of what we are, who we are inside and out. So the struggle is, now that I'm free, now that I'm whole, now that I'm better, that person does not look like the true picture, reflection, or mirror of who I am at that state. So I think that's important, like what you're saying, to evaluate not just the here and now, but for the future, because ultimately, from a marriage perspective, you're trying to make a choice based on until death do us part, when most relationships are really formed based on what am I looking for right now, what I think I need right now, based on where I am right now. So with that in mind, you guys both brought up some excellent points about identifying like what you don't want. With Dr. Brill is more or less, hey, it's life or death. And I know that I have to choose myself, because this person's belief system is going to limit how I live this life, this in this cage that I don't want to be a part of. With Colonel Thomas, what you're saying is, hey, old school, which I love it. I think modern men need to somehow develop it, is, hey, if I won't take this person home to be my wife and present this as my potential wife to my parents, or I would want to make a child with this person, be responsible for the next 18 years, or more or less, I can't take them in every space that I would find myself in society. This is probably not a good idea to be in this person's bed, in their head, or in their life in general.
So, and I can talk about me. When I met my wife, I asked three questions. Number one, is she a person I want to make love? Yeah, is this a person that I want to spend the rest of my life with? Yes. Is this the person that can grow me, that can make me a better man, that can make me that person that I can see myself becoming in the next 20 years? Yes. And with those two things, it automatically made. Now there were some negatives in that I really said, and I was like, no, I don't like that. I don't like that. But at the same point, I had to come to a point, or come to a realization, you put that priority list up there, and the most important thing, how is our relationship spiritually? Can we grow spiritually together? Because every relationship is a spiritual relationship. When you go, so if you go to the judge, you ain't got nothing to worry about because the judge ain't going to talk to you about it. But if you go in front of God, in front of the church, and he says, to death do you part, he said, you two become one. That one is only spiritual. Because the only other time you come one is when you're having sex. So that oneness is spiritual. And that spiritual man and woman that you have, if you cannot connect there, then you're already defeating your relationship, because you can't meet in the highest plane there is, so that you can actually be there for each other spiritually. Because when that complete comes in, you can meet the bedroom, you can meet the social, but when you can't meet the spiritual, everybody else can get in there and do all that. You have a whole lot of space up there, because the husband or the wife is not trying to fill it because they can't, because you have not been equally yoked spiritually. And that's where, even as we have talked, you have seen me talk about where is that person spiritually, because you can't be on and you can't be on a spiritual high, going to church every other day, being in Bible study. You're doing all of these things spiritual, and then that person sitting at home hanging out and cursing, drinking his beer, doing all this other stuff, and then you're like, and you're totally, that, yeah, but he's a provider. He makes the money for me. Yeah, he makes me feel good at home. He cooks and he does everything for me. We have fun when we go out. But then when you come spiritually, and you say, baby, can you go to church with me on Sunday? He said, man, I ain't going to listen to that preacher preach. You sitting here saying, God help me, and he said, man, and he says, God, you saying, God help me. He says, baby, ain't nobody, God ain't helping you here. This is my money and my time is helping you. Don't worry about it, oh God. And you sitting there like, you just lost your whole picture. You are spiritually corrupt. You just turned your whole relationship upside down, because whatever you're doing, you having fun, you having a good meal, you having all of that. That pop is gonna pop in your head. Are you getting ready to go through a hard time emotionally? And that's popping. Maybe I got the money. You ain't got to worry about nothing else. And you're like, I need God in my life, and this guy ain't even got God in his focus. What do you do then? So my wife completed me spiritually. We met in church. I know that's an old cliche. You want to find a good woman, go to church. But outside of church, we still met. I love being with her. I still love talking to her. I still love hanging out. We hang out on the phone, and sometimes we on the phone an hour or two, just being quiet, just spending that quiet time. Because spiritual connection is not about saying stuff and talking and always being there. It's just about being there in the presence spiritually. And then everything else will work out, because money can go, looks can go, good times can go, but that spiritual part is always going to be there, because that lasts forever. Okay, I'm gone. I'm done. I'm done for a moment.
That's okay. A question directly for Dr. Jabril. What advice would you give to someone who may feel trapped in a struggle love relationship due to fear of being alone or financial dependent on their partner?
That's a great question. I would say, so they won't feel alone, seek out a group, seek out a support group, and find people in a similar situation, and work together in a community, because you don't want to be alone. And if you're in some type of group or community, you're going to support each other and hold each other, I would say, emotionally accountable and successful. But the cold turkey thing, or those situations, you can't do that by yourself, because you're going to only go back to what's normal to you. So you would have to be in some type of, I would say, an emotional mastermind cohort or group that helps you through this. And again, I said a group. I didn't say your family members, because that is more of a conflict of interest. But When you're in a group, it's going to be some activity there, but it'll help you to stay strong and maybe an accountability partner within the group. But I would say that if I would have done something like that, it would support me more. Because during the daytime, I would listen to my family and friends, and in the nighttime, I would go back to that relationship. It didn't feel toxic at night, but after everything was over, I realized that it was something I shouldn't have been in, and it was very hard to get out.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that. And so,
Sure, my pleasure.
Colonel Arrington, here's what I would ask for you. What are some of the red flags that you feel that people should not overlook when they're in these type of relationships, that before it gets all nice, hot and heavy and you think you're going to be with this person forever, or it becomes super toxic, that they can automatically say, no, this is not a rough patch. This is really how this person's feeling. And there's nothing that I'll be able to do or say that's going to motivate them to be the partner that I thought they were when this relationship began.
A lot of it is just your spirit, your feelings. How do you spiritually feel around that person? I mean, you can pretty much, I can't say because some people don't have the spirit of discernment. But if I mean, if everything's working on all cylinders, and they say everything is working too good, you need to watch it because some in it ain't right. So you have to understand what you're looking for and what is your objective for the relationship. Number one, what is your overall objective? If it's somebody just have fun with, go out, hang out, and it goes back to the group thing. If it's you have a group of people who do certain things for you, and you put them inside of those boxes, and you leave them there, and you don't let them transfer out of one to the other unless it's a I would say contentious, because it needs to be a struggle in order to move from one place to another, and not let it be something that just happens because that person is in the right place at the right time or the wrong time doing the right things. And that's how a lot of struggling relationships start, from that. But the other thing would be, what are your red lines in a relationship? Is that person do you let anybody else curse you? If that person is doing something outside of what your normal what you like, i.e., if that person use profanity, you're not going to change that. If you don't use profanity, why are you getting in a relationship with somebody that does? Number two, if that person has a tendency of being violent, or you find yourself having a whole lot of different struggling conversations where the person you're arguing a lot, and I've seen that in a lot of relationships. There's a whole big contentious argument that it don't go fist to cuff. It doesn't go where you're fighting physically, but if you're having an emotional fight time after time after time, just because you're trying to figure out where you're going to eat, that's red flags. Simple stuff. If you might say it's simple, but it's serious stuff when you really look at it, because those small things that you're overlooking in a relationship, well, that can change. Or this is just because he don't have the money, or she don't have the money, or this, once I get her into a different home, it's going to be different. Once I get into a different environment, it's going to be different. None of this stuff is not going to change. They have to change. You can't change them. They have to change themselves. If you have to go into a relationship saying you have to make these changes, it's just like buying a house. You go into a house for either one or three ways: brand spanking new, so you ain't got nothing to do with it but to feel it. You make it like you want it. You go in as a fixer upper. There's a whole lot of things you got to change. Or you go in as a rehab. Now here's the problem: a house you can do that with. A relationship, you get what you got until God decides they want to change it. And it can't be something they're doing because of you. And that's the challenge that we have. Is because and women all in with their heart, they're like, yeah, he can change. I show him love enough, he'll change. I was reading a situation here in Maryland where, you know, this lady was putting all these Facebook posts up about her soon to be fiance, moved in together, been talking for 3 years. They found her in the street dead. He done shot her in the head over one altercation in the middle of the night, um, leaving her dead and leaving her four children motherless. And nobody knows what happened. They said he just snapped. They don't know why he snapped. But are there any, now everybody's asking, were there any things in a relationship? She was always talking about the person, how great he was, but is that something she was looking at in her head, and and just pushing over the fact of these small things that have happened, even in our relationships, you know, even after we were married, been married for 29 years, 29 years. My wife is here. That's why I keep looking over here. So been married for 29 years, 29 plus years. And with that, you know, there's still some things that we as a couple are striving to work out. But the beauty of it is spiritually we know we're there. Physically and mentally and emotionally, we know there's still a whole lot of work to do, and we still fighting to support each other as we move through that. And that's the power. Yeah, you get frustrated. Yeah, you get perturbed. But the spiritually, I know what I have. I know what I can hold on to. I know what's going to embrace me. I know that my heart is safe. I can go anywhere in the world, and I know that my heart is right there with her, and I can see it. That's where the spiritual part of the relationship grows, and it makes everything else beautiful because you know that nothing can separate you.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. You guys always do such a great job in making it plain for all the people. So as we wrap up, what I want to tell the people that are in relationship struggles that may not be toxic, that may not be what we considered and have defined as struggle love, and you're just going through right now, just a couple of recommendations is you want to have open and honest communication. And one way to do that is to make sure you're expressing empathy toward one another and actively listening, and setting the time to actually talk without distractions with I statements and ownership. So for example, let's say it's a situation about money, or you need to have a conversation about finances. You may say something like, instead of I feel stressed when we don't communicate about our finances, but instead say, you know, you end up saying, you never talk to me about money. You know, that's just something to look at. Another thing you want to do is you want to set realistic goals and offer your support, and to do it together, making sure that those goals are realistic, they're achievable, and they actually address specific issues that are causing the issue in the relationship. And don't forget to support one another and give each other encouragement, because together is how you're going to get through it. One way you can implement this is to identify what is the main issue. Is it because of their recent job loss? Is it because of financial strain that you're feeling by being the person that happens to bring in the money? Or is there a health issue that you need to really target and really put focus on? Because once you identify what the main issue is, then you can break that issue into smaller, manageable steps by creating a plan that has deadlines, or has small victories along the way so that you conquer together. So for example, if it is financial, creating a budget together and continuing to monitor your progress on how you're getting better in that area may be one way to do that. And lastly, you want to foster a positive environment. That's not when the person walks through the door from work, you don't even know what kind of day it's been yet, and I've been home waiting on you, I'm tired of these kids. No, not like that. You do not want to be coming and attacking. Remember, your home is the place of the sanctuary. You've come in home to your home so that you can be free from all that you had to deal with. So another way you can do that is you both need to develop a joint hobby or activity together that you both enjoy, that you continually express appreciation and give affirmations to the positive aspects of your relationship. So one of the ways to do that is you can compliment them by saying, hey, I really appreciate this about you, or that we had this difficult situation, or we're in this difficult situation, but I am really proud of the steps that we're making to achieve. Even though we have not been here before, we're here together, and babe, is going to be all right. We're going to get to it on the other side. Those are the things that are going to make that relationship work and thrive. So I know that the relationships that you've seen in your life may have not been models, if you will, for what you think is successful and healthy, but you have the power in your own relationship to make it the relationship that you want to not only last, but to be around for a lifetime. So don't forget to support one another. It's hard, as they say in these streets, but together will make all of the difference. Any final words, Dr. Jabril, would you like to contribute tonight? See, we have Miss Tanya on. Good evening.
Good evening.
Any final words, Dr. Jabril?
No, just wanted to say, hold on. Sorry, I'm out of the area, but just wanted to say, to stay out of toxic relationships. And before you even get in them one, don't try to think that you're going to be the person to change someone. That's not even your job or your purpose. Your purpose is to understand what God has for you by yourself, and how that person or that soulmate, that life partner can help complement and complete that purpose and mission. That's my final words. Anything outside of that is not of God, and you're headed for death.
Excellent. So join us next week, Sunday, June 30, for our podcast show live, The Preparation for Becoming Ruth, The Power of Submission. And in this episode, we will debunk the myths surrounding submission in relationships. So join us next week, where we will take that wonderful biblical story of Ruth and Boaz, deconstruct that, and discuss how submission actually fosters connection, trust, and balanced power dynamics. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you, Colonel Arrington, for your contributions, and Tanya for you jumping on to help us deliver our Misguidance of Struggle Love.